Hi, peace be upon you folks. And now for some more weirdness involving this coronavirus, which I think is the first phase, even if you heal from it. This is sort of a part two of a previous video I titled Sophia, GodAI, Magick, and the False Matrix, Coronavirus and Silver. But again, let's watch this video first.
These guys talented to kill.
If you go down this road, I'll be looking over your shoulder the rest of your life.
I'd rather look the devil in the eye.
Look the devil in the eye. So, did you catch that?
I'll be looking over your shoulder the rest of your life.
I'd rather look the devil in the eye.
There's another movie that made headlines. Started off with some strange humor. I wanted to turn it off, but I'm glad I didn't. It's actually a pretty good movie. In this movie, a sentence came up to look a tiger in the eye. The movie is called Jojo Rabbit, by the way. So basically it says to look a tiger in the eye and trust without fear. That's what it is to be a woman. Now, tiger in Jewish gematria is 201. And so when you look at tiger in the 201 in Strong's Concordance, it has to do with a courtroom, like an auditorium, a place where a hearing is held. So another thing that came up during that time was Mr. Man, which has a similar gematria, if I remember correctly. But so is it a coincidence though that around the same time there was a woman sitting by Trump during a press conference, and she was wearing an attire like a scarf that resembles a tiger. So I believe most of what they do, it's like they always seem to be invoking certain things at certain times. In sometimes and hidden in plain sight, obviously, so that you would otherwise ignore them. But I think so sometimes you would look up something or something will come up, but maybe it doesn't mean anything. But the more you see it reoccurring in society and in their media, because I think that's part of their magic, then I think you tend to go deeper into that and see if it makes sense. So I believe Trump went through the impeachment, which was just an act, something like a ritual that he needed to go through. Just to go through it. So I believe we were just being played. So it was sort of like a courtroom, right? Like the 201. So basically he stared the tiger in the eye. So I think maybe this is part of the hierarchy of the magic, and I think maybe this was also meant to signify something else that he was going through, right? So he passed through the impeachment process so that he could pass through some other process that he may have been going through. So I believe in their magic, their false matrix, Satan is also passing judgment, right? Because you have to have a system of balance, a system that makes sense, a system of recompense. So even when you look at what I consider the ritual of Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump, it's almost like they had you choose, like they kept telling you in the media that you were choosing the best of two evils, right? So hardly anybody was saying, oh well, I'd rather not choose any of the evils, right? And now recently also you see in the media with this climate change and Greta Thunberg and the coronavirus, there was something in Al Jazeera, a news headline that says basically the climate change protesters are telling you to pick one of the two evils. Would you rather climate change or would you rather coronavirus, right? So basically go out and protest. So I believe this is almost like the judgment, right? And most of the people that chose Trump, basically they chose nationalism, even though most of them believed he was going to drain the swamp. But in fact, I think that means their judgment is going to be both the coronavirus and climate change, because they rather choose like human beings, right? Would you rather choose the climate, the planet and all the creatures in it, whether human or not, or would you rather seek your own selfish interest and sacrifice whatever animals are and not care about the planet, no matter what happens to the other creatures, as long as you are okay? So basically that's what it means. I think it means in their judgment coronavirus or climate change, right? So it's like I'm not going to go out and catch a coronavirus. I'm not going to protest climate change in crowds and catch a coronavirus. So I'm choosing my own self rather than the planet. But in fact, it's like a judgment upon you in which you would you would get both. You would get the climate change, the weather catastrophes, and the coronavirus. And I believe even what's happening with the Democrats is a similar ritual for judgment, right? So you have two candidates, and everybody basically jumped ship, right? I had a Twitter page in which I looked at some numbers. So basically, people shed off their clothes and they basically joined Joe Biden because it's like they wanted to defeat Bernie Sanders because they believed he could beat Trump, right? So many candidates were supporting Joe Biden, sorry, because of that. But it's like if you're a Democrat, I'm not saying if you're an American, let's say you're just a Democrat and you support every other thing that the Democrats support, right? Basically pro-choice, which is also pro-abortion, or LGBTQ slash marriage equality, which is also pro Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Let's say you support those things. As a candidate, Bernie Sanders, right, is a better candidate, I think. So if you choosing Joe Biden just because you think he would beat Trump and Bernie Sanders won't beat Trump, then it's like you're saying, I know what's better, but I'm not going to choose that, right? I'm going to go against my conscience and choose an evil that would defeat another evil. Do you see what you're doing? So, in fact, I think that's another judgment that they're making you pass on yourself so that they would say like, oh yeah, you see, these are the type of people they are. So they deserve what's coming, right? So it's like a time may come when you might have to choose your salvation, right? And in fact, you would choose an evil to counter another evil, right? Because come on, man, Joe Biden basically is like, and Bernie Sanders. I think that's like night and day. You have somebody who's, I mean, obviously, I think they're all acting, right? But let's assume we're taking them by their word because that's the ritual, right? We people basically believe these things. Would you rather vote for Bernie Sanders or for Joe Biden, who hardly says anything intelligible? So to me, this is what the virus seems like, or maybe just a forerunner of like the real one the rider of the pale horse would have. So remember, it says that he that sat on the pale horse was named Death, and hell followed with him.
Despite admitting that his
Now, the
country is
Chinese
in a struggle
president
against a
also
demon epidemic,
called the
Chinese
virus
President
a
Xi Jinping
demon.
has expressed confidence that China will win the battle against the coronavirus outbreak engulfing the world. Here's our Kim Hyo-sun with the details.
So WWE is also used as a major ritual ground, I think, for mental programming, predictive programming, sorcery, because sorcery, that's what basically sorcery is. So have you met the character, the Fiend? So what is a Fiend? A Fiend is defined as an evil spirit or demon, right? So one characteristic of the Fiend is that he seems unstoppable, and even when you take him down, it's hard to keep him down. So you saw in the title match between him and the one they term right now the Monday Night Messiah, Rollins. Rollins hit him with several curb stomps, but it couldn't keep him down. Yet Goldberg returned. Goldberg, who returned to slay the Beast in previous years, and which I believe is also a ritual because he's basically the owner of the spear, right? If you watch Trump's coat of arms, it's like he's holding a spear, right? So it's almost like the one with the spear could not be defeated, some kind of legend or myth, right? But basically, Goldberg had that kind of like a legacy, like he couldn't be defeated one-on-one, right? So basically, it's like you have this Fiend, and I think that's why Goldberg was meant to beat him. I think that's part of the ritual, right? But I think it's like the WrestleMania match that is being pushed towards having the big dog Roman Reigns fights Goldberg. I think Roman Reigns is gonna beat Goldberg. I think basically they wanna pass that torch from Goldberg to Roman Reigns, right? So I think it's like the rider of the white horse. I think basically is the president of America, especially Donald Trump. But I think that spear is gonna be passed from Trump to Mike Pence, who basically I think is playing the role of the Archangel Michael, right? So, and Michael the Prince that is going to go against the Prince of Persia, who I believe will be the false Mahdi that they have everybody looking towards. So yeah, basically the Fiend is a character that seems unstoppable, just like this virus, right? It seems very unstoppable, and you can even get reinfected. So it's almost like the people who make a deal with death. It's like, for example, saying, "Oh, we have the vaccine, so we can infect everybody," but yet you know that these viruses can mutate, right? So it's almost like you made a deal with death, and obviously he's going to betray you. Uh, so that's how I also see that. Um, yeah, so I guess I've already talked a little bit about Goldberg and the Fiend and how it relates to Mike Pence, I think. But anyway, there's more that you can get into with the numbers that they use or that you think you see, because again, we're not part of their rituals. We can only speculate and see what makes sense, right? So, I mean, some people have been coming up with prophecies that the virus might seem to die out and then kind of reinfect. And in fact, somebody showed me a book that basically wrote about such a virus that would seem to disappear and then come back again. So this is also seeming like the Fiend, right? And right now the Fiend is like, oh yeah, I don't care much about the universal title right now. He's going against John Cena. They determine John Cena the greatest right now. Whatever. So all this ritual, I think, is related. The Fiend and the coronavirus and how it might seem to die out, then come back again, right? Which is a characteristic of the Fiend as well. So yeah, I guess I've talked a little bit about Goldberg and the Fiend and the WWE ritual. So I think basically it's like this, right? The Quran, the Islam has a similar tradition, right? Like when somebody uses talisman, sort of black magic, for protection, basically the Lord says, "Okay, I've left that to you, with you to protect you," right? So you fail to take the Lord as your refuge. So it's a similar thing. The Lord basically leaves the thing to protect you and may abandon you altogether. So sometimes these devils, it's like they want our hearts to resemble them, so we'll be one with them. So they keep getting us to do certain things, keep provoking us into certain actions, certain decisions, until our conscience and our subconscious slowly resembles theirs. So it's almost like there's no difference between us and them, right? So I think that's what is happening here. We're seeking refuge in other things instead of seeking refuge in the Lord. So basically, it's like I think Satan is setting us up for the locust in the pit, right? So our subconscious, we're supposed to be human, we're supposed to be man, Adam, right, the son of Adam. But some of us, our subconscious resembles more of other animals because of our characteristics, our behavior. We've not realized being human yet, right? So I think these demons and devils can get us play with our subconscious. It's almost like shaping clay, right? Get it to resemble a certain thing so that they can possess us because they resemble those things. So basically, it's like they're setting us up, right, for these, preparing our bodies for some of these possessions, and then seeing who the Lord will protect and who the Lord will abandon. So they would just try to possess as many people as possible. But I don't know if this is the virus, but I think in the future, by whatever means, they'll prepare our bodies for such possessions, right? And then leave it to the Lord to basically protect you or not protect you. So how many of us, for example, you look at Israel, they, instead of seeking refuge in their Lord by going by the Torah, which they say they believe in, they're seeking refuge in the United States. They're seeking refuge in a strong person. Many of us do that. You know, we seek refuge in the elite people of society. We seek refuge in black magic. So what? Then obviously the Lord will leave that thing to protect us after a while, because it's like our minds are no longer that of human. We've gone so far that there's no protection for us anymore. And that's what the devils are trying to get us to, the point they're trying to get us to, I think. So, are you ready to stare the devil in the eye? Is your conscience clear? Would your Lord abandon you? I usually say, even if you're flawed, and the Lord knows more of your flaws than even you do, right? You have to accept your flaws, accept that you're in sin, and wish that your Lord will deliver you from that. But usually when you're untruthful, you don't want to accept this wrong. Sometimes you feel a certain way towards a person, and within yourself, you know, that was arrogant, that was racist, that was that. It's okay to accept that, but I think usually we want to think we're good, because you know the Lord is good, and sometimes some of his attributes, it's like they're ingrained in us, right? But we're not truthful enough to reach that realization by his mercy and his grace. And so we tend to like use falsehood to disguise that truth, that we are not good yet. We should be good, but we're not always good. We have some bad, and only the Lord can remove that. And that's so it's like, are you going to admit within yourself that, oh yeah, I have these characteristics, they're not good, I wish to change them, I cannot do it on my own, but the Lord can help me with that? Or are you going to make excuses and just wish to continue in sin? I think that's the difference, right? You have to be truthful to your conscience. If you cannot accept something as truth, then you don't need to accept it, right? And if I want to talk a little bit more about the locust, it's like even in Islamic tradition, they talk about how Satan touches everybody at birth. Basically, they say there were two people he didn't touch, right? The Messiah and the mother of the Messiah, Mary. So basically, it's like I had this dream one time, and it made me think there's always a leech attached to you somewhere, right? And that leech is almost feeding off of your mind, and maybe relating that to their AI or to another clone or image they have of you in the hollow earth, because I believe hollow earth is where most of these entities are, right? And because of that, they basically know so much about you, and they're suppressing some of your abilities because they're feeding off of your mind. And it's like I think also we ate the tree, right, from the tree, which I used to think was the tree of deception and black magic. Then later I thought the forbidden fruit was cannibalism, right? But I think the truth is somewhere there. Like, I think sometimes Satan takes the truth, which is like a 3D object, like a 3D crystal, right, breaks it, and then inserts these parts into like 2D images. So it's not, so one, you're looking at something that is truth surrounded by things that resemble the truth, right? But they're not really the truth, they're falsehood. And in fact, you're not looking at it from the right angle, because it belongs to a 3D object, but now you're looking at it from a two-dimensional point of view, right? So I think Satan is really good at that kind of a deception. So what I think now is that the tree was the tree of death, right? So once we ate from the tree, we lost our clothing of life, right? And certain things were exposed of us, right? We lost that clothing, and now death lives within us. So maybe there is truth behind what the Christians say, that the Son died, right, to save mankind. I mean, Muslims tell you that the Messiah was neither crucified nor was he killed. So I believe it was before, maybe, I'm speculating here, maybe before the second creation of Adam, because Adam was first created in heaven, right? Then later created on earth. Before Adam was returned and he gave birth to Cain and Abel, I believe he had the Messiah in heaven, and the Messiah was basically good. He never ate from the tree, right? So I think because every child of Adam was within Adam, and he ate from the tree, which is death, right? So he had this child, because the Quran tells us that the Lord created Adam and Eve, Then when he covered her, she carried a light burden, right? She became pregnant. And they prayed to God. They invoked him. They say, if you would give us good, we'll be grateful. But when he gave them good, they associated partners with God. So basically, they ate from the tree. They sought refuge in something else, right? Satan deceived them. So I believe the Messiah was already born in paradise, and he never ate from the tree. So maybe in a way, I don't know, man. I'm just saying, because sometimes the laws in certain heavens are different from the laws in other heavens. So it's almost like he was sacrificed so Adam could get that life back, and that life for all the other children that were abiding in him. So it's like they're saying the Son of Man lives within you all, right? So in a way, that's cannibalism, which I don't want it to mean cannibalism as we have it here on this earth, because but it's what makes sense to me right now, as disgusting as that sounds, right? But I believe like the heavens have different laws, and the way things are set up are different. The way things are understood are different. So I think that might be forbidden here, might not be forbidden somewhere else. But basically, it's like another saying that is attributed to the Messiah, right? Where he says, when you ate that which was dead, it became alive within you, right? So we ate from the tree of death, right? We lost our clothing of life, but now because we ate of the Messiah, right, we have that possibility to have life. But it's not going to be given to everybody. We're going to have to show that yes, we want it, we desire it. Are we going to be arrogant and think our righteousness is because of our strengths? Yes, we're not saying don't tell people when they're wrong or advise them to do good, but that idea that many people have, that people just don't want to do good, it's not like they're not struggling. People have to change that idea. I believe that's what it means to judge others, right? It's not like you don't tell people, oh, this is wrong, let's change it. And obviously, we should all try to be like, yeah, we're not perfect, but we seek perfection, right? Most of us, we enjoy some of the sins, but we have to know that what is with God is even better than that. That peace, that enjoyment, that bliss is better than that. But Satan succeeds in deceiving us, so we don't even want to let go. We don't want to trust the Lord, that what is with the Lord is better than what is Satan has given us options, right? So we think, oh, we are free, but in fact the freedom with the Lord is better than what Satan is giving you. Satan is only giving you deception, he's only trapping you. So would you be able to see that? Would you be able to see that you're dead and you need life? Would you be able to be truthful to your conscience and desire from the Lord that he saves you from, redeems you from the prison you're in? So yeah, right now I see like people seeking refuge in things they have no knowledge about, like this colloidal silver. I mean, I think you should always seek refuge in the Lord first, and then see what he guides you to. And maybe there is something in it, of a healing ability. But I think also they're preparing our bodies for something else. So whatever you do, let your Lord be your refuge, and don't think a strong person is going to protect you, or your own knowledge and wisdom will protect you. So basically, this is who I think Silver is. And I follow some YouTube channels, I said that before, that you could get insights from. So there's another person called Mr. Katai, and he basically related the code of silver to Obama. And yeah, obviously we saw the Super Bowl ritual as well, and the WHO has a similar emblem. So what else has a gematria as tiger in gematria? Basically Obamacare and Taliban. And we've seen with this deal they made with the Taliban, right, which I think is part of the ritual. Anyway, one of the things I think is important is to stay away from mind-altering drugs, right? So even if it's sleeping pills. We saw in the Equalizer movie how when he slayed those guys in the hotel room, the guys who had violated the lady Amy, drugs were involved. In 21 Bridges as well, it's mostly about drugs. So basically, that's what I think demon possession is, right? It's basically psychology, because the battle is for your mind. Basically, the devils are trying to shape your mind, mold it to a form that's different from a human form, a form that they can take, so that there will be no difference between you and them. So basically, it's like memory suppression, gaslighting, hypnosis. So basically, supernatural, we just termed that because we didn't understand it. But whatever the Lord creates, there's truth behind it, there's an explanation. The only thing that you can't fully comprehend is the Lord Himself. That's why it's going to take us forever to understand Him, to know Him, to reach His beauty, to reach His glory, right? You would never attain that because the Lord is exalted beyond degrees. But don't think supernatural just because you understand something or you've been given the explanation or knowledge of it, so that means it's not from the Lord, right? So basically, these entities are suppressing who you are. And many people are like, oh, accept me for who I am, but you don't know who you are. You think you are something that the devil has deceived you into thinking is what is good. Most of what the people are following is how the devil has influenced them. But who you truly are is the highest form the Lord had created you. And you cannot know that until you seek your Lord. So how can you be walking around saying, accept me for who I am, when you don't even know who you are? God created you good. You're flawed, yes, but within everything else He has created, there's a particular space for you. There's a uniqueness in you. There's a goodness in you. There's a perfection in your purpose, right? But you've not discovered that. So how do you know who you are if you don't even know your Lord? You've not sought your Lord. Anyway. So basically, when the Lord pours out His Spirit, would you benefit? I hope we do. And there are hadiths, right, in Islamic tradition that speak of in the end times, a person will go to bed a believer and wake up a disbeliever. Another person will go to bed a disbeliever and wake up a believer. We saw even in the story of Jesus, right? Most of the people who followed Jesus were what you would consider riffraffs of society, right? But the Lord knew there was good in them. They just were not taught the scripture. That's one. Their societies were not shaped in a way that made it easy for righteousness. So that's what I say. Whatever situation you find yourself, just do your best. Your Lord knows the situation you're in. Many people are forced to do things they don't want to do, right? Don't accept those things that, oh yeah, that's what I want to be now. Know that these things are wrong and hope to your Lord that He would deliver you from these things. So we should always try to reform society, right? And so that it's easy for people to be righteous. But we have to desire these things. We have to be truthful in our hearts, truthful to our conscience. And we have to also be humble and know that whatever we have is only because the Lord grants us that. So I believe there will be a time of major transformation that is coming, right? And when the Lord will pour out His Spirit, and some people will go to bed and benefit from that inspiration. But it's like many people are so used to the world, right? We're used to how the world works that we cannot even think about these things. We cannot think about such wonderful, marvelous things happening because we know how the world works. We only deal in things, we only deal such that we would make it in this world. So when somebody tells us something like that, it's like so hard to believe, it's so foreign, right? But we have to be able to willing to accept these things, that great things can come from the Lord. May the Lord make it easy for us.